My twin sister showed up to my job interview, pretending to be me, and got the job using my resume. So I applied for her dream job. My sister Leah and I are identical twins. Same face, same voice, same height, same everything on the outside. On the inside, we couldn't be more different. Growing up, Leah was the twin who got everything first. First to have a boyfriend, first to get her license, first to get invited to parties. Not because she was better at anything, but because she was louder. If I was talking to someone at a family gathering, Leah would walk over and start a different conversation like I wasn't there. If I got a new haircut, she'd get the same one the next day and tell people she did it first. If I saved up for something she wanted, she'd go to our mom and cry about how I always got nicer things, and our mom would make me share or just buy Leah the same thing to keep the peace. That was the rule our whole lives. Keep the peace. Which really meant let Leah have whatever she wants, so she stopped screaming. After high school, I went to community college and got a degree in accounting. Leah dropped out after one semester and bounced around between jobs she'd quit after a few weeks because they were boring or she just didn't feel like going. She lived with our mom rent-free while I shared a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate and paid my own bills. None of that bothered me because I'd stopped expecting Leah to grow up a long time ago. What happened in October is what broke me. I had been job hunting for 3 months after the firm I worked at downsized and let half the staff go. I applied everywhere. I went to interviews in clothes I couldn't really afford because I wanted to look right. I prepped answers and researched companies and stayed up late going through practice questions. Then I got a call from a financial consulting firm downtown. Good salary, good benefits, exactly the kind of place I'd been trying to get into for years. They scheduled me for a Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon. I told my mom about it because I was excited and she said she was proud of me. I made the mistake of saying it in front of Leah, who was sitting on the couch at our mom's house. She didn't say anything about it, didn't congratulate me, didn't wish me luck, just looked at her phone and kept scrolling. Wednesday came and I drove to the office building. I was 15 minutes early. I checked in with the woman at the front desk and she looked at her computer and said, "It looks like we already have you checked in." I said that wasn't possible because I just got there. She looked confused and said someone with my exact name had checked in 20 minutes ago and was already in the interview room. I knew. I didn't have to ask. I didn't have to see her face or hear her voice. I knew it was Leah. She had gone to that office with our same face and our same last name and checked in using my name because we are identical and nobody would know the difference. I told the woman at the front desk there had been a mistake and that the person in there was not me. She went to get the hiring manager and they came back and the manager was a man named Foster and he looked at me and then looked back toward the interview room and I could see him trying to figure out what was happening. I explained that I had a twin sister and that the woman in the room was not the person who applied. He went back to the room and came out with Leah. She walked into that lobby wearing a blazer I had never seen before, carrying a folder with copies of my resume in it. My resume, with my degree, my work history, my references. She'd taken it off the printer at our mom's house where I'd left a copy. Leah looked at me and didn't even look embarrassed. She said I was just trying to help. Foster told us the interview couldn't continue under these circumstances and said they would be in touch. They never called me back, not once. I found out 2 weeks later from our mom that Leah had called the firm and spoken to someone there and they offered her the position. She called them herself. After being caught pretending to be me, she went and contacted them on her own. She didn't have my degree. She didn't have any of my experience, but she sat in that interview room for 20 minutes being me. And apparently, that was enough for them to remember her. My mom told me this like it was good news. She said, "Well, at least one of you got the job." I said, "Mom, she stole my interview." She literally walked in there pretending to be me. My mom said Leah told her it was a misunderstanding and that she'd just gone in to scope the place out for me and things got mixed up. I said she had copies of my resume in a folder. That's not a misunderstanding. My mom said I should be happy for my sister because Leah hadn't had a steady job in years, and maybe this would be good for her. I stopped talking after that, then I made my plan. I spent the next 2 days researching everything about Hartwell and Associates, the company Leah had talked about working at since we were 16, after seeing some article about their creative campaigns. Except she never took a single marketing class or did an internship or built a portfolio, just talked about it at family dinners while I was actually getting my degree. I found a posting for junior marketing coordinator wanting someone who could manage project budgets and create financial reports for client campaigns, someone who understood numbers but could communicate with creative teams, and my accounting degree had required 3 marketing electives. So I updated my resume highlighting every client presentation and report, where I'd explained complex financial data in simple terms, worked key phrases from the posting into my materials, and submitted my application at midnight. 3 days later, Hartwell's HR called asking if I could interview Tuesday at 10, and I stood in the cereal aisle of the grocery store and smiled for the first time since the whole thing with Leah happened, then spent 5 days researching their client portfolio and practicing my answers. Tuesday morning, I put on the same blazer I'd worn to the interview Leah stole and drove to the Hartwell building, glass and steel with their logo and brushed metal letters, and the interviewer led me to a conference room where I explained how my accounting work had always involved client communication and why I wanted to use my financial skills in a more creative environment, and near the end she mentioned they'd had problems with creative people who couldn't handle the financial side and said my accounting experience was actually a big advantage. That feeling of hope lasted until the next afternoon when Leah called 4 times crying that she was completely lost at the consulting firm, didn't understand the software, couldn't build the financial models, and wanted me to come teach her, like this was some tutoring session, and not her desperately trying to do a job she'd stolen by pretending to be me, and I told her I was busy and hung up while she was still talking. An hour later, Mom called saying I needed to be a better sister, and Leah was struggling and family was supposed to support each other, and when I reminded her Leah literally pretended to be me and took a job using my resume, Mom said that was in the past, and I should want to help Leah succeed. agreed, and I asked why it was always my job to help Leah, but never Leah's job to not steal from me, and Mom called me selfish. 2 weeks later, Hartwell called me back for a second interview with the department director and 2 team members who asked about difficult clients and competing priorities and explaining financial information to non-numbers people, and I had real answers from my accounting work that translated perfectly, and the interview lasted over an hour. That Thursday night, Leah showed up at my apartment saying she'd been assigned to create a financial projection model and had no idea where to start, expecting me to do her work like we were back in high school, and I walked away from the door and texted Mom before Leah could twist it, that she wanted me to complete an assignment for a job she got through literal fraud, and I would not help her succeed at something she took from me. Mom called within 10 minutes with the guilt trip, and I asked if she remembered what Leah did was fraud and identity theft, and that I could have pressed charges but chose not to, and Mom said I was being dramatic, and I told her it was exactly that serious, and hung up. 3 weeks later, while filing paperwork at my temp job, Hartwell's HR called offering me the junior marketing coordinator position at a salary actually higher than what the consulting firm had offered, saying they valued my unique combination of financial skills and communication abilities, and I accepted before she finished talking. I updated my LinkedIn Friday night, and Sunday morning Leah called screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away, yelling that I'd stolen her dream job and applied to Hartwell behind her back and ruined her future, and the irony was so thick I almost laughed, and when she stopped to breathe, I said unlike her, I'd actually qualified with my real credentials and didn't have to pretend to be someone else or commit fraud to get hired, and she couldn't come up with an answer that didn't admit what she'd done was wrong, so she hung up. My first day at Hartwell, I showed up 15 minutes early. My supervisor showed me to my desk. By lunch, I'd started a budget analysis she said was exactly what she needed, and by Friday, she pulled me aside saying it was refreshing to have someone who understood marketing budgets because most creative hires couldn't read a spreadsheet. Mom called the following Tuesday sobbing that Leah submitted work with wrong formulas that caused problems with a major client and was on a 30-day performance improvement plan, and I said goodnight and hung up. 2 days later, Mom begged me to help Leah with the financial software saying I was the only person who could, and I said Leah getting consequences for being unqualified for a job obtained through fraud was not my problem to solve. 3 weeks into Hartwell, I got assigned to a major project building financial models for a product launch, and the department director watched me present the budget breakdown and said I was exactly the kind of employee they wanted for leadership, that they'd been looking for someone to bridge creative and analytical, and I was even better than they'd hoped. 6 weeks after starting the consulting firm, Mom called sobbing that Leah had been fired because she couldn't do work requiring the degree and experience she'd claimed on my stolen resume. Mom texted for days until I agreed to coffee, and she said Leah losing her job was partially my fault for not helping, and I told her everything. Leah stole from me my entire life. Mom always made me sacrifice to keep Leah happy. Leah committed fraud, stealing my interview and resume an identity. Mom called it good news instead of theft, and I was done being the family doormat. Mom admitted she'd been easier on Leah, thinking I was strong enough to handle things while Leah needed more support, and I said that was exactly the problem because treating us differently, our whole lives taught Leah she could take whatever she wanted without consequences. 2 months after getting fired, Leah showed up looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, saying she was sorry. She'd been going to therapy and understood she'd hurt me, and was working retail at the mall now, something she was actually qualified for. And I accepted her apology but told her things were different and I wasn't going to help her get jobs she wasn't qualified for, or bail her out anymore. And she cried saying she wanted her sister back, and I said I was still her sister, but not her backup plan or safety net. 6 months after the interview mess, I got promoted to senior coordinator at Hartwell with a significant salary increase, moved into my own apartment, made real friends with coworkers who respected me, and my life was genuinely better because I'd learned protecting myself wasn't selfish but necessary, and I was done making myself smaller so Leah could feel bigger, and she'd stolen from me and faced consequences, and I'd built something real on my own, and that was enough.